While loading a frame can seem overwhelming at first, it is really very simple. Looking at the frame, there are 3 rails with leaders, which is the canvas the quilt layers are attached to. There is a dedicated top rail, which is actually the lowest rail, a dedicated backing rail, often referred to as the belly bar because of its location, and the take-up rail that takes up all the layers after being quilted. There is also a stationary dead bar under which all layers pass. The leaders on your BERNINA frame are labeled, identifying the rails. So let's look at the 3 layers to be loaded: the backing, the batting, and the quilt top. We will begin with the quilt backing. The backing is attached to the take-up rail on one end and the backing rail on the other. You may begin with either rail. We will begin with the take-up rail. You may work from the front of the frame or the back. We will be working from the front. Find the center of the backing. Mark the center on each end. Before pinning, be sure the take-up leader is under the dead bar. Pin the center of the backing to the center of the leader, which is marked with a heavy dashed line. Place a pin horizontally. Until you get a good idea of pin spacing, place another pin on the next dashed line, and so on. Go back and place a pin in between the first pins. Make sure all the pins are horizontal and are the same distance down from the edge of the leader. Work from center out in each direction. Place the last pin with the point facing in to protect yourself from getting poked or scratched. Close the latch on the take-up rail and roll up the quilt back, smoothing the backing as you go. Leave enough backing to attach to the backing rail. Find the marked center of the other end of the backing. Pull up the leader from the backing rail and pin the backing to the center of the backing leader. Latch the backing rail, unlatch the take-up rail, and roll the backing up on the backing rail, smoothing the backing as you go. Roll up until the top end of the backing is just to the dead bar. Latch the backing rail. Next, lay the batting on top of the backing, lining up the top of the batting with the dead bar. Smooth out the batting, and as it falls to the front of the frame, place it behind the top rail. If you have the optional batting bar, you can place it behind the bar or gently roll it up on the bar. Place a line of basting as close to the top as possible. Push the machine to the back of the frame. Select a preset stitch length in BSR3 and stitch a horizontal line. Optional channel locks will ensure a perfectly straight line. Lay the quilt top over the frame with the right side up. Lift up the bottom edge of the quilt top and find the center. Pin the bottom edge of the quilt top to the leader of the top rail. Pin from center out. Latch the rail and roll up the quilt top on the rail. It may be easier to let the quilt top hang down from the top rail. Leave enough of the quilt top to pull up over the batting. Line up the top edge of the quilt top with the basting line. Be sure all rail latches are latched. Baste the quilt top across the top and down the sides. You have now loaded the frame and are ready to quilt.